Looks like that's on now. Ah, there we go. What's up, guys? Spencer here. We're back doing another video for you guys. I know you don't have to say it. It's been a long time since I got a video out on YouTube, but it's been a little bit of a crazy year for me. I've been doing tons and tons of traveling, going out west, south, east. It's been pretty nuts, but I've been enjoying it, to say the least. Living my dream, doing what I love to do, meeting new friends, and helping people enjoy the hobby has been something that's been changing my world, my life, because this hobby has changed mine in so many different ways that I can't even describe. But anyways, enough of the nonsense. Let's get straight to the video. And today we're going to be talking about my winning setup from BRC from the Masters of Dirt. Last weekend we were in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and we had an awesome racing event going on with 348 entries at BRC. Brent, the owner there, put on an amazing show with his crew. Of course, Team Associated went in guns blazing. I believe we won 11 out of the 13 classes that they had at the event. So you can say that Team Associated quite dominated the event. And of course, we had a good showing in the modified classes, but I wanted to do a video talking about in-depth more on the settings that I made with my car. I have a setup sheet here we're going to go through. I have my car right here. We're going to go take a closer look into the car setup, why I made the adjustments I did for the traction level, what made it easy to drive, what things that I did that I didn't like, that I changed, to give you guys a better idea of how I'm thinking when I'm making these adjustments from a different perspective. Because I know you guys, see these setup sheets that are posted online on my Google Drive link or the Team Associated website, and it's like, how do you translate that for you guys when you're at your local track? So I'm going to go in, talk about why I made the changes that I did, what I didn't like, and for those reasons, hopefully it helps you out at your local track. And I'm going to stop talking now because the video is already started too long. But if you guys really like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It only helps my channel, gets it out to more people, and of course, I appreciate you guys watching, so let's get right into it. So anyways, I'm actually not sure how this is going to work, but I have my second camera here that's going to be looking at the vehicle as a bird's eye view for you guys to see what I'm actually talking about. I'm going to have my setup sheet right here going through the different settings, my pointer stick, so you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, I believe how I'm going to have to edit this is going to be in the top right corner of this video that you're actually watching. Of the audio, so I can explain the settings that I made and so forth. So stay with me, guys. Alrighty, I got my setup sheet, I got my pointer, I got my camera for your bird's eye view of the car setup sheet that you'll probably see in the top left or right hand corner depending on how I want to edit it. But we're going to talk about first shock positioning on the tower. As you can see, I'm running middle on the tower. It's typically what I've always been running at the bigger races with the high traction. When I run them stood out, I feel like it made the car more aggressive. It didn't roll fluidly on the front and was more, like I said, aggressive. Didn't feel like it got in the corner that good. This rolled nicely in the corner, so I just left it with middle, called it a day. Moving on next to the front sway bar. It seems like 1.2 is really where I always end up running the front sway bar. This allows the car to get on the front nice and fluidly. It has good steering. It actually helps the car track straight out of a corner and is easy to drive for the high traction tracks. Moving on to the camber link positioning on the towers. With the B74.1, there are two different rows now for the tower. I always run the inside row. Middle height is very traditional for all the tracks that we typically run on. here in the States, but I know that we added this short link row for tracks that don't have a lot of traction, where your car may be difficult and loose to drive, and the outside row will actually help your car be more predictable. But for the high traction tracks that we run on here in the States, the inside middle height is always standard. Along with that information, move on to the outside ball stud height. I ran 2 millimeters at the Masters of Dirt for the setup. If I want a little bit less steering, I'll typically go to 1 mil on the outside, but 2 is pretty traditional. Along with that information, we'll move on to the axle height. +2 axle height is what I always run. Typically, sometimes when the track is lower traction, I could maybe go to lower the axle to get it to have more steering, but when I go do that and the track actually comes in and builds more traction, I always end up running +2. So if you guys do need more steering at your local track, if the car doesn't get on the front, then maybe try lowering the axle height. So as you can see, I made 2 sharper marks on where my pin locations are. They are in the middle height. On my previous setup sheet from OCRC testing, I ran the pills low. When I run the pills low, like down all the way, typically that's a sign that there's not that much traction. You need more steering, get the front end on the front, and so forth. But on the opposite end of that, when the track has high traction and is a little bit more difficult to drive on the steering wheel, like too twitchy, hard to drive, I'll typically raise the pills up, and what that will do, it will get the weight transfer off the front and more towards the back of the vehicle, and that will allow for smooth on and off power steering. If it gets really extreme, then you can raise them all the way up, and then that should really fix your problem with the steering. On to the front shocks. As you can see on the setup sheet, I have the yellow front spring. I have the 1.5 front pistons in the car. When I was at the event, I showed up with 1.6s front on the front with 40 weight. In the main, I went to 1.5 front shocks pistons with 37 weight to help the weight transfer not get on the front so hard and overload the front tires and like jack on me and spin out. This is huge because when you're going through the corner and the front tires overload, especially when there's a lot of traction, it's a very dangerous feel. It's almost like you're feeling like you're gonna flip or fly off the track. Doing that setting in the front, the 2-hole 1.5 front pistons, like it says on the setup sheet with the 37.5 front weight, was a huge change for me. Helped me be very consistent in the long 10-minute main and didn't make my brain not bleed. Also, too, I wanted to mention some of the notes that you see on the setup sheet. It does show that I'm running the 24 front shock bodies, the Kashima coated ones. This is something that we've been learning a little bit of what the shock body length is actually doing. We are running the B74.1 front tower with the 24 longer shafts. 24 longer bodies with the 23 millimeter shaft. As you'll see on the setup sheet, I have a one internal limiter with 22 short eyelet on the shock stroke. This has been allowing the car to land a lot better with these big jumps that we've been seeing. It's a little bit more consistent. It's not a huge difference that you'll feel initially, but when you go down and look at your live RC lap times from the top 5, top 10, top 15, putting it on, it's a tenth and a half, a tenth there of your saving on all the way down the board. So I would really recommend checking it out. All you need is the longer body and the shorter shaft, and then you're good to go. So as you can see, what the other camera is pointing at is the diff height adjustment. This is something that we're really starting to figure out with running dirt. I can't tell you enough of how many times I've tried changing the diff height on the different traction levels that we've been racing on with dirt, and I come to find out that I won't be changing my diff height adjustments at all from 0. As you can see, the 2 dots above the screw, which is the 0 diff height, as low as you can get, until we run on AstroTurf or carpet. Running the 0 diff height adjustments, making it a lot more smooth and tame to drive. It really allows the car to feel more in the track instead of opposed to be on top of the track. I feel like it jumps and lands a little bit differently, and I always prefer running it at 0. And of course, the diff height adjustment is really dependable on what actual ride height you're running on. So anything below 16 mil ride height is when I wouldn't recommend changing the diff height. So if you're running 15 or 16, then I would then go to +1 and then so forth. But yeah, that's what I recommend. And we'll move on to running the Ackerman position. As you can see, I'm running the back hole on the Ackerman, which is the most amount of Ackerman you can actually get in the vehicle, which the outside tire will turn less than the inside tire, which will be smooth in and out of corners. On top of that, on the reverse effect, if you are running the Ackerman forward, that means that your outside tire is going to turn more like the inside tire through the whole steering stroke of the steering wheel. What that will do is it will typically make it more aggressive to drive. It probably will feel like you have a little bit more 180 steering, but sometimes when you do that, when you're turning through the corners, it'll probably want to suck into the inside of the pipe, and you'll probably end up hitting the pipe. And like I said, it all depends on traction level. So just, pick your poison. I've always tried to tune the car with running the Ackerman back, and just calling it a day. So as you're able to see, I'm pointing at the center diff. This is one of the biggest things that I'm going to go out and say makes or breaks a four-wheel drive car. Obviously, Team Associated has released a carpet version and a dirt version car for the B74.1, very similar to how we made the B64 platform cars, carpet and dirt. Originally, when we released the B74, we didn't have a dirt version. It was kind of, it had, the slipper, different sway bars and stuff. So now with the new B74.1, we offer both options, and the dirt version has transformed our four-wheel drive vehicle tremendously of how it drives on the track, the comfort level, how much grip you have. And running the center diff is highly recommend running for dirt, no matter what traction level that you're running on, especially when running on slicks and pins or, dirt webs, double Ds, whatever it may be. So the center diff, highly recommended. I'm running 500K. I've never really ran anything lighter than that on this vehicle. It seems to be very standard of mine. I do know that Cade Brunette was at Myrtle Beach for the Masters of Dirt, and he had, I believe, 200K in the center diff. And what he noticed when he went from 200 to 500, it really helped the car bleed out in corners. It didn't suck into the inside of the pipe when you're steering under acceleration. And of course, for you stock racers, it's like a no-brainer running the thicker diff oil. Obviously, I know that there's other systems out there, the lockout slipper for the super lightweight, but you can get this center diff pretty light. I run the plastic gears, front, center, and rear. They hold up just fine when you run the center diff, but if you are running the slipper, I do not recommend running the internal plastic gears on the B74.1 or the B74 platforms in general. So that's my 2 cents. We'll start moving on to the rear, and then we'll go to the main cool accessories that I have on the car, the body, tires, etc. Alrighty, so now that we're on the rear end of the vehicle, we're going to talk about the camber link positioning, length, and ball stud height on the hub. As you can see on the shock tower positioning, I am running the lowest setting that you can. When running this setting, I highly recommend running 1 mil for the length. I run the carbon insert to change the length of the hub for the camber link length. When you do make it shorter by adding more ball stud washers to this location to move this in or out, I would recommend running the middle height on the shock tower. But when you run down the shock tower, the longer the length, it seems to be the better. So I ended up with 1 mil here, down there, and 2 mil for the height on the outside of the ball stud. And that's pretty much my go-to. Now, as for the rear axle height, I'm running +1 rear axle height. That seems to be my always standard for the rear end. When I go to 0 axle height, it makes it get on the rear a little bit too hard, a little squirmy out of the corner, and I don't think it jumps and lands all that rad. So +1, call it a day, and just move on to the next adjustment. As you will talk about the rear sway bar, I'm running the 1.3. Like I said earlier, the front I'm running 1.1. Or sorry, 1.2, the rear 1.3. The 1.3 rear sway bar is my go-to. I don't really ever adjust it a whole lot, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, as for the C and D mount inserts, we talked about the height, higher and lower. I ended up changing my C insert to 1 down in the C mount, which took away 1 degree of anti-squat. The C and D mount inserts built into this car are starting at 2 degree anti-squat when the pill inserts are equal to each other. So I have middle in the D mount, which is in the very back, and then 1 down all the way in the C mount. So that's 1 degree anti-squat. Typically when I run on slicks, even on 2-wheel drive, I would typically run a little bit less anti-squat. That just helps the car just to be a little bit more fluid and more consistent to drive around the 180s, high speed on power sections, and helps with smoothing out the steering, because when you run more anti-squat, the car off power will throw more weight to the front end, and it'll kind of get all sketchy to drive. So it's a fine balance. That's what I've been running. It worked well at Masters of Dirt, and I think you should try it out. On to the next adjustment. We're going to talk about the diff height in the rear. I've already gone through a whole spiel about the front diff height. As you can probably think, I am running the same front and rear diff height. Yes, that would be an absolute 100% yes. 0 diff height in the rear. Call it a day unless you're running on Astro or Turf. We'll get into the rear shocks. I am running a 2-hole 1.7 piston in the back with 32 weight. I do have 29 millimeters of shock stroke with a short eyelet. As you'll see also in the notes, I am running the V2 version tower that Associated just released, depending on when you're watching this video, but it allows you so you can run the 31 millimeter bodies. Like I said earlier, when talking about the front body, it helps with a little bit of landing, and I highly recommend checking it out, because a 1/10 of 2 here in your top 5 or top 10, top 15 average can really make a difference for you guys. If it made a difference for me, it will definitely make a difference for you. So definitely recommend checking it out. We'll talk about a little bit. I'm not sure. I'm going to check it out. The shock positioning on the A-arm, I have the 1-hole facing back, which would be the A positioning on the arm, which is the furthest inside hole in the arm on the 4-wheel drive. To me, that helps with landing. It helps with getting a little bit of some droop back into the car, and it helps squirt out of a corner a little bit better. It corners very fluidly, and it's super easy to drive. So for the arm positioning for the rear, if I have my arm shimmed forward or back, for Myrtle Beach, I started with the arms shimmed forward to make the wheelbase a little bit shorter, because the grip level was a little bit loose. But when the grip level came up, we were running slicks, had a lot of grip going on. I ended up moving the spacer in front of the arm to move the arm back, which actually does a lot of things. Takes away dog bone sweep. It actually adds more weight to the front end. So when the traction is super high, I always recommend running a little bit longer wheelbase. It helps with corner speed, more fluid around the corners, and it actually has a little bit more good usable steering. So that's usually my go-to. Alrighty, that pretty much wraps up the setting adjustments that I made on the Team Associated B74.1. As you'll be able to see down below in the description, the setup sheet posted. You can see it on my Facebook Google Drive that I have, and it's posted on the Team Associated's website. The all-new Team Associated B74.1 is a heck of a car. It's pretty much refined from the B74 original drop. Super stoked to see you guys out there running it. It's been very popular out at the local tracks. It's won some serious races. It's got a huge win at the Masters of Dirt at Beach RC. Couldn't be more stoked. Super thankful for the guys behind the scenes, Kurt Wanger, the guys back at the shop, Brent Thelke, everyone in Area 51. Super big shout out to those guys, because without a huge team effort, we really couldn't achieve what we've all seen on paper. So like I said, thank you so much. But anyways, we're going to do a final rundown of my electronics that I have in the car, what I have decked out with. I got the Hobbywing XR10 Pro Blue Edition ESC. I got the 6.5 turn Hobbywing motor. I got the Savox servo. Super stoked on how reliable the servos have been. As you'll be able to see on the setup sheet of kind of the gearing that I ran, this is Savox 1267 servo, timing on the motor, and just all the stuff that is fine tuning adjustments. As you can see, I run the Protek 6100 battery. This is what I chose because of the 10-minute mains at Beach RC for the main events. It was a 10-minute main, so the smaller batteries that I would traditionally recommend running for club level, we had to go for the Big Daddy for the long run time, and the car worked well with it being heavier, so that's always a positive. But if not, I would recommend running the shorty battery that Protek offers, and without a question, the 5 or 6 minute run, it will last no problem. Got the Protek blue aluminum fan to cool it down. I believe it saves it around 30 degrees when you have that puppy running. Of course, I got the JConcepts body. This is the new F2 body on the car. It looks so good going around the track. It's sleek, it's fast, and it has good steering, and it's easy to drive with it on. As you'll be able to see, I got the carpet rear aero wing. This is super sleek to drive, especially on 4-wheel drive. I've been running it a bunch on 2-wheel drive now, and I've been super happy with how it's felt. It jumps really nice and has good traction. So other than that, we're rocking the Aqua compound Ellipes sanded down. This is what I ended up running for the front and rear. Got the TLR 22 offset front wheel that JConcepts offers, the mono wheel. And close that down. Back to one camera. But anyways, guys, I appreciate you tuning into the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching just as much as I enjoyed making it. Give you guys a little bit of an insight. Had some fun doing it, and super stoked on how everything's been with the new B74.1. Go check it out in your local hobby shop, or go check it out on A-Main Hobbies. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message, or any of my teammates, Dustin Evans, Aiden Horn, Brock, Alex Cade, Jackson Brunson. The whole team has been very awesome. I can't be thankful enough for the racing scene. And again, thank you. Have a good one, and we'll see you on the next one.